Matt, thanks for being here today, or more like for having me here to Google. You are a 2007 graduate of Palo Alto High School, and a 2011 newly minted graduate from college from Brown University, and now you find yourself working here at Google and then continuing on with your efforts with the nonprofit that you founded called the School Fund. I'm just curious about how that idea came to you to start the School Fund, and just can you tell me a little bit about what it does and the history there?
Yeah, so the idea for the School Fund came on a trip that I took to Tanzania the summer after graduating from Palo, actually. And it was my first time to Tanzania. I was going with my mom, some family friends, and I'd met this boy named John Meadow who was outside of our hotel cutting the grass for his cow, actually. And he told me in broken English that he was graduating that year from primary school. He took me home and we met the family, and John said he wanted to grow up and become president one day of Tanzania. But the next thing I learned was that these school fees of a mere $150 per year were actually going to prevent him from going on to high school, and therefore pretty much shooting any chance that he had at growing up and becoming a politician one day, shooting those chances in the foot. So when I realized how little it was he needed and how easy it would be for me, having grown up in the Bay Area, to help John out, I decided to help him. And then when we got back home, we began looking at ideas and projects on how to get kids into school, kids like John. And the more I looked, the more I kind of thought that we could really use some technology to move the whole sponsor a student model forward. And that was when we came up with this idea to actually have a place where you can go see students, read their stories, communicate directly with them, and choose individuals to fund based on who they are as people, instead of just kind of an amorphous.
Was there a time when you kind of had that idea? You were obviously heading off to college at that point. What kind of either got you over the hump of actually doing something? You started it when you were actually a sophomore. So what happened in that in-between time that actually propelled you forward to actually do it?
I think I just reached like a critical mass of people telling me that young people can go out and actually make a difference. I went to a school that is very forward-thinking and emphasizes youth action and people actually going out and making a difference. So a combination of the classes I took, I suppose, some conferences I went to that were just sort of centered around young people taking things into their own hands, and then of course the support of friends and family who were actually willing to get behind this idea and make it happen. So.
Speaking of getting behind, did it take some funding to do it, or did you just bootstrap the whole thing?
Yeah, we started off completely bootstrapped, $0. But I had some design experience. My dad has some programming experience, so together we kind of cobbled together the first version of what we thought this could look like. Like I said, a place you can go on and fund students and communicate with them. And then from there, some more friends from Palo Alto High School got involved. My friends Roxana and Andrew, and they kind of brought different skill sets to the table, and we were actually able to really grow the project together.
Now fast forward, here you are at Google doing kind of an HR function, and so Google by day and the School Fund by night. Are you finding that is a difficult juggling act, or is it even common maybe among some of your peers here? Does Google encourage you to do that? How do those two commingle?
Yeah, it's been time consuming for sure. It's kind of like having two relatively demanding jobs, but it's been so rewarding for me, and I love the opportunity to be able to apply some of the lessons I'm learning here at work at Google to running this nonprofit organization in the evening, and vice versa. I mean,
so what are some examples of that?
Yeah, exactly. Things like running a team, for example. I mean, it sounds simple, but just when you have people all around the country working on a project, you have to be very clear and concise and assign people, tangible deliverables that they can actually have some ownership over. And those are lessons that you know, I am applying and managing the school fund, but there are also lessons that we take and use at Google, because we've got people all around the world that have to divvy up projects, and you know, you kind of figure who's responsible for what. So that's just one example. And yeah, I mean, motivating people, getting people excited even though we're not paying them, that's always a challenge, but something that's very important and also been fun to learn how to do.
Do you have friends? I mean, it strikes me, I know a number of people who have started a nonprofit while they were in college or even in high school or even younger. Do you have many friends, peers who were doing this and who maybe have continued it as you have, or maybe not continued it?
Like with projects of their own,
yeah.
You're saying? I don't think I know anyone who's started a nonprofit per se, but my two buddies that I mentioned to you, Roxanna and Andrew, have definitely been instrumental in the school fund getting off the ground, and they all have their own day jobs too that they're off doing, and you know, and everyone who's involved in the project, they're either full-time students or they're full-time employees somewhere else. So we're all kind of doing this juggling act. But I think what's so meaningful to everyone is that they really connect with these students as people, and they realize that, you know, just a little bit of time, a little bit of energy on their part can make huge differences for these students in other parts of the world.
You're in how many countries?
Oh, it's growing quick. We're currently in 11 countries. 11 countries. And the 12th, the Philippines, will actually be coming online next month.
And then how many students?
There's about 150 students on the website so far.
Each getting $150 or
somewhere about.
So, yeah. And so what sort of plans do you have for it, and how do you see that kind of filling in a niche in the other organizations that are kind of maybe not doing exactly the same thing, but how do you fit it? How does it fit into the ecosystem of organizations that are in this space in general, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. So one thing, can I maybe show something real quick? Yeah. There was this idea that we had, I guess a year ago, to open up the platform to other nonprofits. So what we've done is we've actually started working with other NGOs that are raising money to send kids to school and allowing them to put their own students up on the website. So for example, this girl Lena is from China, and she actually is part of another organization called Transparent Fish. And so here you'll see the list of all these partners from around the world that are now using our platform to fundraise for their students and also allow their donors to connect with those students.
In doing all these things, have there been experiences or kind of things you've learned that have been surprising, frustrating, something in particular that maybe you wish you'd known, like if only you had known X before you started, or what you would want other people to know?
I mean, for me, the most valuable thing has just been to go out there and try something. And as a young person, I think the world is generally supportive of young people trying to do things that they're passionate about. So I wish I'd just known even more to kind of go for it in the beginning. You know, when you're starting out with something, you're kind of nervous, like, oh, is this idea really like worth anything? Is it going to make a difference? But yeah, I mean, good idea, bad idea, whatever. Just like go out and start trying it, and people will kind of come up and support you if you're really genuine and excited and enthusiastic about the project.
You mentioned conferences, people, supportive students. Are there particular mentors or other organizations that have been models for you in doing this?
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely been inspired by Kiva. I think Kiva's done a remarkable job in kind of mainstreaming this whole person-to-person giving model, and obviously they do loans for adults who are starting businesses, but I think they've done an amazing job kind of making it appealing for your average Joe to get on and help someone on the other side of the world. Mm-hmm. That didn't really happen so much before with these, you know, small amounts of money that can actually make a big difference when cobbled together. So they've definitely been an inspiration. At Brown, I worked closely with Alan Harlem, who is the director of social entrepreneurship. You know, he was always encouraging me and everyone else who was starting projects like these just to think big and think how to scale whatever work we were doing. And you know, some other friends, parents in the Bay Area that have been really supportive, like Yogan Dalal, who you know, has always bounced ideas off with. So yeah, just a lot of super supportive people that have made this project move forward.
And over time, too, it sounds like some continuity. So do you feel like there are too many nonprofits? I keep hearing that, you know, the government is trying to kind of slow it down, make it a little bit harder to become a nonprofit. And again, you may not know a lot of people, but I feel like there's a new one that I hear about every day, and many of them are started by people even locally. Yeah. So I'm just wondering if you feel like that's a sustainable pattern, like every time there's a new problem, oh, we'll just start a separate organization. Obviously, you've tried to leverage what you're doing so others don't have to do that. But any thoughts on that?
I think what you just said actually was what I was going to reply with. But you know, there's definitely something to be said for individuals who are super excited about something and just going off and having a go. You know, but what I think is unique about what we're doing is it's actually a tool that any other education nonprofit can leverage. So I strongly believe that nonprofits should be working more closely together, and the vision for the school fund is absolutely to be kind of a hub of education nonprofit work. And you know, you might have a partner in Kenya that's doing a fantastic job teaching their kids about, you know, HIV/AIDS, for example, that a partner in Tanzania could see and say, hey, look at this program that you know, they've got going on. Let's try it out in our schools as well. So the idea is to build a tool that nonprofits in education can really use. And you know, it's starting out very simple, just putting your students up to get funding and to connect those students with donors. But the more kind of sharing that takes place via this platform, we really hope to see some of those partnerships form between, you know, different organizations that are on the site. So.
What about funding trends, and what about how you're funded? I mean, is it still something where it doesn't cost anything and you just put in the time and effort and it goes forth? Or are you trying to create some kind of revenue for the organization to then help build it in some way?
Yeah, it definitely started out where we had next to nothing operating expenses. And you know, my friend Roxy and I traveled with grants from our schools, from Brown and UPenn. And
you've gotten Clinton, you've gotten some serious recognition.
Yeah, and then since that first year, we've kind of started to ramp up a little bit on the fundraising side. So as you said, we got a grant from the Clinton Global Initiative University Conference, and as well as some significant funding from 2 family foundations in the Bay Area. And the other thing that we do is, as you're going through to fund these students, there's an option to give an extra $10 to the school fund, and people tend to leave that leave that there. So that's kind of starting to generate some revenue for us as well.
Another question that I have is, people all over the world need help more and more, and people here in this area and this country need help. Do people ever ask you why Tanzania, why elsewhere in the world, why developing countries rather than helping people right here?
We were just meeting with somebody on Thursday last week over at Chegg, which is a company down the road, and he was asking the same thing. why are there no American students here? And it's a great question. I mean, people need education funding here in the States as well, but this project was born out of a personal experience and born out of a trip that, you know, I took to Tanzania, and then trips that Roxy and Andrew followed up with. So that's just where it started. One day we hope to have American students on the site and to have students from all over the world. I will say that it costs a fraction of, you know, what it costs to go to school in the States. It costs a fraction of that to go to school in the developing world. I mean, $150 per year is almost nothing, and that's kind of what we wanted to show funders, was like, you know, these kids really need just a handful of money to continue going to school, and you know, that handful of money can make a huge difference in their lives. So we're kind of playing on that fact right now, that it costs so little to go to school in the developing world.
Do you see yourself at one point making this your day job?
Yeah, that might happen. I've signed a 2.5-year contract though, so. But one day, yeah, definitely entertaining the idea.